Welcome, everybody who's joining us here today. We're very excited that you're with us on a Wednesday afternoon. I know it's a very busy week. It is Dhul Hijjah for those of you who are watching this or who are watching it later. So a special time of year for Muslims and a lot of stuff going on in the world. So just take a moment, maybe a pause to reflect and pray for those that have been impacted in events this week, different parts of the country. So Bismillah. I will go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully, can everybody view my screen? Yeah. Okay. So we are here today with the American Muslim Community Foundation. Today's topic is Redefining Leadership, Women, Belonging, and Justice in partnership with Rabata. We are honored to have our ASL interpreter, David Evans, so yay, and provided by the Minnesota Deaf Muslim Community. So if you do want services for your organization, please reach out. AMCF is committed to have our program inclusive as much as possible, and all our webinars will have interpretation. Today's agenda is just brief welcome and housekeeping, intro to AMCF and the Women's Giving Circle, a little bit on the speaker, upcoming events, the presentation, and a huge thank you for attending today. A little bit about AMCF. Our vision is leading sustainable and strategic Muslim philanthropy for today and the future generations. Our mission is cultivating donor giving, diversifying funding to advance charitable causes. Our core values are sacred, strategic, sustainable, collaborative, diverse, and inclusive. AMCF is for all of us. There are over 900 U.S. community foundations, and there is one for American Muslims, and that is AMCF. We were founded in 2016. We are the only community organization for American Muslims. In this Ramadan 2026, donors distributed through us over $26 million to 1,000 nonprofits. In the past 9 years have distributed that amount of money. This Ramadan, $3 million was distributed through AMCF to about 300 nonprofits, alhamdulillah. Currently, we have about $9 million of donor assets under management, which includes 280 donor advised funds and a little over 30 endowments. Why AMCF for your donations? Well, we are Sharia compliant. Our support fees fund community programs. Our giving strategies are aligned with Muslim values and common regular ethics. We do have philanthropic advisory services, and our programs build Muslim nonprofits. Our impact, again, over 280 donor advised funds, over 30 endowments, over $26 million in funding going through us to nonprofits, and currently a little over $9 million in assets under management. Our core programs are both for donors and nonprofits, with donor advised funds, giving circles, endowments, and leadership development. For the community, we offer a variety of resources: curated weekly newsletter, educational webinars like the one today, # Muslim Philanthropy Podcast. If you're a leader, community organizer, please hop on. We also do networking events, Nonprofit Summit, which is an annual summit, Ramadan Family Guide, Zakat Calculator, just a few of the resources we provide for our community. Again, our annual Nonprofit Summit will be held this September, Thursday, September 3rd, and with offshore activities on the morning of Friday, September 4th, right before the ISNA convention. So save the date, put on your calendar. We also organize or serve with national committees for the community, including National Muslim Plan Giving Council, Investment Committee, the National Muslim Endowment Council, as well as the AFP Muslim Affinity Group, which is moderated by AMCF. For more information, you want to reach out, you can reach us at givingcircles@amuslimcf.org. And we also have a nonprofit resource center. Again, just a trove of resources for if you're with a nonprofit, you're leading one, check them out. And you can also reach out if you have questions or want more. Nonprofit engage at amcf.org. Our purpose of the Women's Giving Circle is to harness the power of American Muslim women through collective giving, combine and democratize our giving, amplify women-focused nonprofits, support Muslim women in leadership, provide seamless donations to organizations chosen by our members. So we are very much a member-serving, member-led circle. And for the circle, how it works, well, you join as a member of $5 a month or more, become a voting member with $35 a month donation, nominate. Every member has the option to nominate an eligible organization, basically their favorite nonprofit, with preference for nonprofits serving or led by American Muslim women. And then you vote. Voting members determine the finalists and then the top 3 organizations that will be funded in that cycle. And the cycle lasts a term of a year. So what do we do? Well, in the past 3 cycles, we have collectively raised and distributed a little over $55,000 to 9 profits in 3 cycles. We have about 35 current members, and our 2026 cycle is open and ready. If you want to join today, you're welcome. Last year, in the 2025 Women's Giving Circle, we had about 18 amazing nominees, 14 of which earned their gold or silver candid seal of transparency. We had 5 finalists and 3 grantees. You can read about them on our website. You can scan the QR code or Google that. One of the organizations that was a grantee last year is on the call. The Minnesota Deaf Muslim Community with Assistant Executive Director Asma is here. So a huge shout out to Asma. Also 200 Muslim Women Who Care, as well as Care Collective. So 3 amazing organizations, again, nominated by, chosen, voted on by our members. Not just me, not Shazine. Yes, we are members, but the whole circle. Join us. We are open. The cycle will go through August, inshallah. And then now to upcoming programs here at AMCF. You can check them all out. Scan our QR code. We have a number of events coming up. June 17th, we are moderating the AFP Muslim Affinity Group, and we're honored to have Dr. Noshina Hussain, who's also a Women's Giving Circle member, share some of the key findings from the first national survey of Muslim women-led nonprofits, part of her dissertation, and she just received a doctorate this past weekend. So we are very grateful to have her join us. And again, ASL interpretation will be available. Just request it when signing up. And July 11th, if you live in Southern California, we will be having a networking event, a Connect and Thrive lunch for Muslim leaders in the Inland Empire. And by Muslim leaders, I mean you, me, all of us. So please, if you're in town, join us. And then back to today. It's not Zakat 101. Sorry, it's Redefining Leadership. Sorry. With Fatima Salaam, my mistake. She serves as Rabata's Director of Strategic Growth. She completed her Bachelor of Arts in English at Spelman College and earned her Montessori and elementary credential from the American Montessori Society. She is also certified in Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and DEI. She started her career in education as a teacher, then a principal, and finally a development director. Later, she became a business owner in the sales and marketing industry. And you, of course, can follow her on LinkedIn, see all about her latest and greatest adventures and words of wisdom. So with that, I will stop sharing and let Fatima take it over. So welcome today, Fatima.
Assalamu alaikum and greetings to everybody who's joined us. I'm really excited. And it's funny that you would have Zakat 101 up there. I am ecstatic to follow in Afshan Malik's footsteps. She's the development director at Rabata. And one thing I love about her is that no matter what situation she's in, she always has high energy and a smile. So I'm excited to come after her. Hopefully she gave you lots of information about Zakat. And speaking of Rabata, I was just thinking about, these women organizations and how we come together because we care about women in society, whether it's here in North America or all all over the world. And so thank you so much, AMCF, for inviting me. Lisa and Shazine and I, we actually are friends. We've worked on other projects together, so we're like the Three Musketeers. So, of course, when they invited me, I definitely wanted to say yes, and made sure I opened up my schedule for that. So I'm pleased as punch to be here with AMCF. You know, I was thinking when you were doing my introduction about one time I was sitting on the beach. I was actually in Mexico. I had traveled there by myself. I was in Playa del Carmen, and I was just staring out into the ocean waves, which is a beautiful, place to be. The ocean, the sound of people rollerblading and biking. And I was just thinking to myself, I feel like I've hit a point in my life. I was just at 50 that I want to do something that really makes a difference in other people's lives. But not only that, I want to be a part of something where my voice is heard, valued, and appreciated. So, you can have a thought, you can have a wish, you can have an idea, you can have a prayer, and then God, Allah, can grant it to you. And so a few years later, I found myself working at Rabata. And then my second love, which is strategy and growth and strategic planning and all that stuff, I had the opportunity to become the director of strategic growth for that, I'm very grateful to Dr. Tamara Gray and the executive leadership there for all that they've poured into me and allowed me to do. So with no further ado, we'll get off the beach of Mexico and we'll come to what our title is today. I would say that I would love to see your radiant faces because it's going to be a very interactive workshop. And so it's not really me giving you all the information. I want the information to come from you. So it will be fantastic if you have your cameras on. And I'm sure that will be helpful for the interpreter too, so that he can get your words and your body language. So the first thing we're going to do, because we're talking about women belonging and leadership, the first thing we're going to do is, I know that every woman or man in this room has a definition of what leadership means to them. So I'm going to give you about 90 seconds to think about that, okay? Your definition of leadership. And once you have it, can you please put it in the chat? And it doesn't have to be fancy or academic or anything like that. We just, want to come from a place of the experience and expertise I know you already have. And while you all do that, I'm going to get my slides ready. Okay. All right. And then let me try to make it where I can see your beautiful faces. MashaAllah. All right. Okay. So I made it where I could see your faces, but now I can't see the chat. Oh my. Let's see. I'm asking a lot of myself today. Where would I find the chat, guys? Oh, right down here. Okay. So we have modeling, encouraging, empowering others to achieve great things together. Leadership is recognizing the talents of your team and encouraging the best out of them, not just by what you say, but what you do. I love that. Anybody else? And then you can add some things. So, Rubina said, empowering others to achieve great things together. Is there something else that can go with that?
Is
When you
is that
think,
a question?
yes, yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, helping others see the vision, and then you get their buy-in. To me, that's the biggest attribute the leader can have, and that takes you much farther beyond your personal one-person capability.
Exactly. And Iman said justice. I love that. Anybody else? Okay, so we'll move along. So we already did that. What is leadership? So now today what we're going to be learning is three things. Examining the dominant definitions of leadership and how they have shaped our practice. Understanding what's the difference between belonging and justice and how leadership should be rooted in belonging and justice. And then leaving with your own personal leadership statement that might have a little bit more to it once we go through the three core objectives. Does anybody have a question before we move forward? So, the reason why I like to emphasize belonging and justice and leadership is because, in order for us to be able to galvanize a group of people, we don't want to be, as a leader, the only voice at the table, but it takes intentionality to be able to bring other people's voices to the table. So, belonging is the experience of being held where your full humanity is seen, that you're being dignified and held and accountable for your well-being. So that means you're being seen, heard, appreciated, and valued. There are systems in place to make sure that whether you're an officer, a manager, a supervisor, a leader, an executive, the CEO, the CFO, that there is an opportunity for your voice to be heard. So in the Islamic framework, what I love about it is that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1400 years ago already established the perfect framework for how we should operate together as community. And one of his famous speeches, which is called his last sermon, which we will talk about at the end. So, belonging is not earned through performance or productivity. It is extended to every member of the community by virtue of their shared humanity and their covenant with one another. It's not about race, it's not about gender, it's not about ethnicity, it's not about social class, it's not even about religiosity. Everyone is afforded the opportunity to be treated as a human and with dignity. We can go to the next one. So, what is justice? So, in American terminology, when we think of justice, I think of dun dun dun. I don't know if you ever watched Law and Order, the criminal justice system. When I was younger, I just knew I was going to go to law school, and I would watch all the law shows, LA Law, Legal Eagles, all of those, because I was going to law school. So, in America, we think of balancing the scales. But we know that from the early days, people don't always receive justice through the court system or through the judicial system. So I like to think of justice as coming higher than mankind, that it actually comes from a framework that comes from God, which is adl, which is the Arabic word for justice, which is the most frequently commanded virtues in the Quran, and is considered a divine attribute of God, of Allah, meaning that God is just. And so as humans, we want to emulate that justice. That means everything has a rightful place given to each person, every situation, and every relationship in due measure. So just think about those two definitions. Belonging and justice, with those two definitions together, we would automatically have what people like to argue about: what's equity, what's equality. Well, if people are treated with justice and they have a place, then we would be a lot closer to equity and equality. So I just want you to think of something right now that you think was just really unjust that happened in your life. In that experience, did you experience belonging too? Or is it impossible to belong in an unjust system? And then I want you to think about vice versa. You felt that you didn't belong. Well, where you were, was it a just system? So just think about that. Justice changes the system so the question doesn't need to be asked. It has to be systemized. It's not just one person's opinion. It has to flow through the entire society. We can go to the next slide. So now this was going to be a small breakout groups, but because of the intimacy of what we have now, we will not break out into rooms. I will just give you the instructions right now. So what I want you to think about is a room where you belonged. Okay, you knew immediately. No one had to tell you you belonged. You just felt it, and I want you to describe that. Okay. Then I want you to think about a room where you did not belong. You were there, but you knew you weren't welcome, seen, or considered. Okay, and I want you to write both of those if you have paper in front of you or in your phone. Give you a couple more minutes. I really want you to dig deep and think about, how did you feel? How did the room feel? Why did you feel like you belonged? Why did you feel like you didn't belong? Okay, when you feel like you're ready, if you could raise your hand so I can see that. And not, it doesn't have to be your literal hand. You can use the chat feature or whatever this, the react feature. Okay? So we'll give more people a chance to finish. Okay, one more minute. Okay, can we advance to the next slide, please, Lisa? All right, so in the room where you belonged, what did the leader or environment do that created that feeling? What did they say, do, build, or prioritize? Lisa, can you go first, and then Heather, and then anybody else who wants to go but doesn't want to speak on camera, you could start to put it in chat. Okay, Lisa?
I would say that they made sure that everybody's voice was heard when we had have meetings and stuff. Everybody's asked for their opinion. There's no belittling. If there's feedback, it's from a constructive place, not a breakdown, tear down place.
Okay. Heather?
I was in a room where we were all welcomed. Everybody, the leader actually went last intentionally and asked everybody else to give either input or how their day was first before they gave theirs.
Okay, all right. Giving space for others before their voice. What about you, Rubina?
Um, I'm multitasking at the moment.
Okay.
I'm trying to get my arms around the whole topic, so allow me to listen
Oh,
and
yeah,
I'll
no problem.
participate.
Yeah, no problem. Does anybody else want to contribute what it felt like to belong in a room?
You can also put in the chat if you want to just type it out. That's
Yeah.
welcome.
All right. So, um, the justice question then becomes, I want you to think about belonging and when you felt like you belonged, how it felt, and then when you didn't feel like you belonged, how did you feel? You could put that in the chat. Why is everybody being so quiet? Asma, Maha, these are people I work with. I'm calling people out, taking names. You could just put it in the chat. This is also the school run time too, so they could be picking up kids. So when you think about belonging and you think about when you belonged and when you didn't feel like you belonged, the question for justice is, in the room where you did not belong, what was missing? Was it a policy, a practice, an assumption, a structure, and whose responsibility it was to fix that? So, belonging is the actual feeling, the emotion, the container, and justice is the rule, the system, everything to support it. So, then the answer would be to this question is a leader who does not center belonging and justice is actually leading toward what? If they're not centering belonging and justice, what kind of leading are they doing? Let's think we said belonging means your humanness, your dignity, policies and procedures in place to make sure that you're heard, seen, and appreciated. Asma said a room where your contribution, your length with the organization, and your history is externally highlighted but not internally recognized. So, what is that leader leading toward? Heather?
I would say in that kind of a leadership style, you're actually stifling the advancement of the company as a whole, but also that dictatorship style, I feel like it stifles creativity, it stifles innovative thought. And so you're really doing a big disservice to the big goals of the company and making it more about yourself as a leader versus expanding. Sorry, that was really long,
No,
but.
no, thank you so much. You're right. You're leading away from belonging and justice and centering people, and usually leading toward ego, mission drift. There's so many things that you're leading towards because if you're not going towards the positive, then you're usually going towards the negative. The negative, yes, Lisa, leading towards a drop off or an abyss. Okay. Any more on the belonging and the justice? Any thoughts before we move? Yes, Heather, and then Asma. Well, Asma first because she hasn't gone. Asma and then Heather.
I'd also say that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Asma. Go ahead.
No worries, no worries. I was going to go back and answer that first question, the belonging question.
Mm-hmm.
In the room where I felt belonged, I would say that um, the leader prioritized my needs, and I didn't have to ask for that priority. So that's just wanted to contribute that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Heather.
I was just going to say for the leadership question, then you're losing top talent as well. People will not stay where they don't feel valued or seen or feeling injustice. They'll leave. And if you're not seeing that that's what you're creating, then that creates a hostile environment as well. So top talent will leave.
Exactly, because if people feel excluded, they feel fear, if they feel like they have to be compliant, where there's too much focus on performance and not enough on accountability, when there's damage, harm, disconnection, it leads to turnover and to burnout. So you said that on the mark. Anybody else want to contribute before we move? So nobody in this room, I'm sure, set out to lead toward any of these things. And yet, without intentionality, without focus, we will be building belonging and centering injustice. This is where leadership drifts. Not because leaders are bad people, but because the default systems we inherited were not built for belonging. Most of the definitions that we grew up hearing about leadership was based on the dominant structure, which was usually a white male, well to do man, right? So anybody outside of that, the further you were from that, the less you were considered as the group to belong. And then if you weren't a part of the belonging group, then justice was not considering you. Just it had nothing to do with you, right? Justice was for, power of the people and all of that. The judicial system was initially for the people who belonged. And the further you were away from that dominant person or prototype, the less justice and belonging you experience. So, most of the systems that we have that came from that were built for compliance, and compliance and belonging are not the same thing. Who can share with everybody what that means, that compliance and sharing, belonging and compliance are not the same thing?
What was the second word? Belonging and compliant?
Yes, compliance and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, Asma.
I mean, my initial reaction is to think of like compliance as something that has to do with some stated rules or laws, and belonging is more about how the people feel about that. So it's kind of like like how it comes across. I don't know.
So I love that. Imagine that the school has a rule that at the middle school, because kids were bringing lunch and they were bringing things from different restaurants, they decide the kids can only buy hot lunch. They cannot bring lunch home from school. So every child in that school has to be compliant to that rule. Well, you have students from all walks of life. You have Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims, Jewish children. You have Christians. You have atheists, people from all over, all walks of life. But the menu is catered to one dominant group. So there might be pork served one day. There might be beef served one day. There might be only meat one day, and you have vegetarians. And so the school has now set up a situation that children have to be compliant. And is canceling out belonging because they're not thinking of, okay, if we're going to make a rule that you can't bring home from food from school, then we have to make sure that our menu is inclusive of all the different types of children that we have in the school. And it just can't happen International Day or on Fridays. It has to happen every day. You have to have a vegetarian selection. You have to have a halal selection. You have to have a kosher selection, right? So you can be compliant, and you can find lots of systems and organizations and schools that are compliant, but they're not thinking about belonging. And they thought maybe by not having children bringing in food from different restaurants, that was building inclusivity, because kids who couldn't afford to do that would feel excluded. But sometimes you can try to answer the question of belonging and end up just hitting the mark on compliance. Does that make sense? So Maha said, compliance is something you follow, while belonging is a state. Yes. And Lisa said, I think of compliance in terms of rules, following them, while belonging is part of a group or community. So I want you to think about where you work or your family. What would it look like in 5 years if belonging is never centered? I just want you to think about that. Then I want you to think about the people in your world, either your organization, your worship community, your family. Who do you know right now that's performing belonging instead of experiencing it? And how can you tell the difference? How do you know it's a performance and not a true experience? Anybody want to try on that one? Okay. Well, one way to be able to see the difference between performance and experience is when you are creating an environment or a community of belonging, the people that you're trying to create that for have to have a seat at the table, but first they have to know this table exists. So we can't say, oh, we're a diverse organization and we welcome everybody. But then when you see the decision makers, they all look alike, they all think alike. Hadia, is that how you say your name, or Hadaya?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
Yes.
salam.
Hadia, yes. I'm
Okay.
sorry I had school pickup.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I figured. Yeah.
But I was logged in while I was driving. But mashallah, alhamdulillah, this is a very interesting topic. So my background is actually similar in corporate HR and DEI and things of that nature. So I have a lot of examples about this, but two come to mind. One, when I worked in HR, and we would compile affirmative action data on our employees, right? Or on the staff, on the company. And we would present this to the executives. Then they would say, well, just tell me how many people I need to hire, right? Just tell me, so how many women? How many, people of color? Just tell me the number, right? There was an executive that would say that. So like this quota kind of thing, like, did we meet the quota? Subhanallah. So this is very bad for many reasons, right? The compliance piece. Are we compliant? Do we have the numbers? Do we have the diversity look? Right? But we don't have the inclusion, the equity piece. And so that's one example. And then another one that I think of in the university setting, there were a lot of initiatives around recruiting diverse students for, strategically. However, once the students enrolled and actually started their classes, they had no support. There was no specific resources and support for these students to actually graduate. So yes, it's the university seemed attractive recruitment wise, but they did not have a multicultural advisor that understood what it meant for them to be a first generation student, right? Or that some of the students of color had to take care of their parents, being a translator and also a breadwinner. And that may affect their classes. So performative diversity or belonging instead of true equity and belonging. I digress.
No, I love that. And so that's what I wanted to circle back to make sure people understood what we were saying when we said performative. Those were lovely examples. Thank you so much. Performative is basically acting like you're doing it, but you're really not. It's not institutional. There's no justice in place. The people who it's serving, they don't have a place at the table. Other people are deciding what it means to be inclusive. It's kind of almost infantile. Help me say this word. Infantile. Okay, treating them like infants, basically, right? And so instead of treating your employees as people who are humans and intelligent and able to make decisions for themselves, you're taking away their efficacy. Okay, that's another word for what I'm trying to say. And so that's performative. When you're experiencing it, experience is symbolized in the DEI world as true, authentic intentionality. You really are trying to walk the road of belonging. Does that make sense? Any questions? So now that we have a taste of what belonging means and a taste of what justice means, now let's look at some alternative definitions of leadership with belonging and justice in mind. So Adrienne Maree Brown in Emergence Strategy in 2017 thinks of leadership as emergence. Leadership is not a position you hold. It is a practice of noticing what wants to emerge and creating the conditions for it to grow. Critical connections and deep trusting relationships between people and a system are more crucial to transformation than critical mass. A leader practicing emergent strategy does not push people toward a predetermined outcome. She tends the relationships, holds the vision, and trusts that when people are genuinely connected to each other and to shared purpose, everything will happen as it needs to happen. So that's one definition. Just want you to think about it. Where belonging is the soil, not the goal, and justice is not the destination, it's how you get there. Let that sit with you. Any questions about this definition? Lisa's saying, are there suggestions for how to make a space that is more belonging versus performative? Yes, include the people who are being impacted. Make sure that there's conversations with everybody having an opportunity to have time at the table. Leaders having office hours that are open where there's no gatekeeper kind of deciding who can have conversations or not. Sometimes affinity groups work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes affinity groups become this little quota. We've got our affinity group, we've got our people of color group, we have our woman group. Okay, we've done all we can. So experiencing belonging and not being performative takes a deeper level of work, which could happen in another workshop. Can we go to the next one, please, Lisa? Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and Bell Hooks wrote this great book called Teaching to Transgress. They believe that leadership is about liberation, that you are freeing people when you lead them. It's not to put them under your thumb. It's not to be autocratic and authoritarian. It's about giving them the tools, the experiences, and the language to be free. Leadership is the practice of creating conditions where every person can fully show up, fully contribute, and fully become. It is not about managing people toward a predetermined outcome. It is about dismantling the structures, assumptions, and systems that prevent people from accessing their own power. So I want to rewind a little bit and just laugh. I was trying to say infantilizing because now the young people say it. My daughter says it all the time. If she sees someone being what she considers racist, or if they're being, she was reading a book where it's a very famous book that you read in middle school, and she was like, oh my goodness, they're being so patriarchal, this book is so sexist. I was like, well, it was written in the 1950s. She's like, yeah, the idea that the women have to stay at home or whatever, they're infantilizing the women. And so she said that, and yes, it's a common term, but the fact that she was in the 7th grade, so I've been trying to put that in my vocabulary, but I wasn't quite ready for it yet. I'll keep practicing. So anyway, but that's liberation, right? Allowing my daughter to have her experiences and to be responsible for her outcomes. So old leadership is, how do I get more from my people? Liberation leadership is, what is in the way of my people being everything they already are, right? So it's removing the barriers, removing the veils, clearing opportunity, making it easy for them to have opportunities. Not deciding that you know absolutely what's best all the time. So justice is not the value that a leader holds, it is the work that all of us do every single day. So that's our second definition. Any questions on that one? Okay. So then the last definition is leadership as covenant. Who can say in the chat what covenant means? A covenant. Sometimes when people get married, they call it a covenant. When nations take over another nation, they might have a covenant with it. Yes, an agreement, a promise, right? A commitment. So in the book by Max Pree, Leadership is an Art, 1987, he talked about the Islamic principles of amanah. And amanah in Arabic means trust. So leadership is a sacred covenant between a leader and the people entrusted to their care. It is not a transaction. It is a relationship built on mutual accountability, deep respect, and shared responsibility for the community's well-being. A covenantal leader understands that their authority is borrowed, not owned. They hold it in trust on behalf of the people they serve and the values they have committed to uphold. So those are three very different ways of looking at leadership, but they kind of can work together. One is covenant, one is liberation. So I want you to think of the three that we went through. Which one do you think you are? Leadership as helping people to emerge, a leader helping them to liberate who they truly are, or a leader that you hold a sacred trust and you guide your people. And then you can also, if you're not in a leadership role, think of how you like to be led. Okay? So in the chat, you can say which one, let's say first, which one you feel like you would like to be if you're not a leader yet, or which one you are. Put 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. Okay, so an example of a leadership as covenant would be Prophet Muhammad. It would be possibly a principal of a school who really makes sure that the children are safe, that they're taken care of, that they're learning what they're supposed to learn in class. A leader as an emergent person could be somebody like Oprah. She's trying to help people uncover who they really are, right? She's trying to get them to excavate their possibilities. A leader as freedom could be somebody like Martin Luther King, Malik al-Shabazz, right? Someone who's freeing people. Or it could be as simple as you lead with, instead of telling people what to do, you use the strengths finder. And you say, okay, I want you to be aware of what your strengths are, and I want you to work as closely towards your strengths as possible. And then I'm going to give you all the opportunities to lead that you can find. So that could be an example of a liberating leadership style. So Hadia says she's 2, a liberator. Okay, anybody else? 1 and 3, covenant and emergent. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so now what I want you to think about is, how do you like to be led? Are you a person who you want someone to have the covenant and they, you feel cared for and they respect you and they value relationships? They're looking towards the whole community. Are you someone who's like, no, I want you to be free and figure it out, and I'm here to support you in you figuring it out? Or somebody who's more like emergent? I think of emergent kind of like a teacher. They're teaching you and showing you so that you can see what your potential is. How do you like to be led? I think I'm a 2 for that. Liberation. Now I want you to think about, okay, emergent. I have a mentor, all right? Is emergent like a mentor? Yeah, that could be, yes. So now I want you to think about, of the three, leadership as covenant, which is a sacred covenant between a leader and the people entrusted to their care. Leader as liberator, where you're trying to bring justice, creating conditions where every person can fully show up, fully contribute, and fully become. And leadership as emergence is not about the position you hold. It's about believing anybody can have the potential if they're mentored, if they're taught, if they're guided, if they're exposed to knowledge. So which one do you think challenges you the most? You're like, oh, I don't really agree with that, or that's not the kind of leader I would want or I would want to be. Do any of them challenge you? Liberator, okay? Anybody else? Well, this is what I want you to notice. Typically, the definition in anything that challenges us the most is usually the one that is either most needed in ourselves or we lack seeing it around us. And so we can't even conceptualize what it would be to have that kind of leadership. So I just want you to think about that. That's not always the case. That's just something that I would put before you to consider. So finally, going to the next slide. We can keep going. We did that one. Next, yeah. Ooh, I'm going to have to make this bigger. I'd like to close with a portion of when I started at the beginning. I said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had the beautiful framework to last all time of what belonging and justice and leadership looks like when it's centered. Okay, today was just a taste. It took me 3 years to get my certificate in DEI. It takes a long time to really get rooted in this and then to get practice teaching people or practice helping people to design these communities. But I hope that this taste was like an invitation for you to want to do more. O people, it is true that you have certain rights with regard to your women, but they do also have rights over you. Remember that you have taken them as your wives only under Allah's trust and with His permission. If they abide by your right, then to them belongs the right to be fed and clothed in kindness. Do treat women well and be kind to them, for they are your partners and committed helpers. And it is your right that they do not make friends with any of whom you do not approve, as well never to be unchaste. O people, listen to me in earnest. Worship Allah. Say your 5 daily prayers. Fast during the month of Ramadan. And give your wealth in zakat. Perform Hajj if you can afford it. All mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. Also, a white has no superiority over a black, nor a black has any superiority over a white, except by piety and good action. Learn that every Muslim is a brother to every Muslim, and that the Muslim constitutes one brotherhood. Nothing shall be legitimate to a Muslim which belongs to a fellow Muslim unless it was given freely and willingly. Do not therefore do injustice to yourselves. Remember, one day you will meet Allah, God, and answer your deeds. So beware, do not astray from the path of righteousness after I am gone. O people, no prophet or apostle will come after me, and no faith will be born. Reason well, therefore, O people, and understand words that I convey to you. I leave behind me 2 things, the Quran and the Sunnah, and if you follow these, you will never go astray. All those who listen to me shall pass on my words to others, and those to others again. And may the last ones understand my words better than those who listen to me directly. O Allah, be my witness that I have conveyed your message to your people. So right there, belonging and justice is centered. And there's a history of why he has to talk about women and why he has to talk about race, because by that time, sexism and racism and patriarchy were alive and well in the society. And it's so ironic that, 1400 years later, we're still dealing with that. And so I would just invite you to, can we go to the next slide? Do two things. First, write your personal leadership statement and feel free to email it me at fatima@rabata.org. I'd love to give you taking a screenshot. I would love to give you feedback if you'd like, or I'd just love to hear what you learned from the session by doing your own leadership statement. And then here are some resources that you can take away with you. Pedagogy of the Oppressed is a marvelous book, Teaching to Transgress Bell Hooks. I love that book. The 11 Leadership Qualities That Changed the World, Nabil Al-Azimi. Those three books I read the entire. The rest of them I've just had on my shelf from the different education courses that I've taken, and I've read some of them. But I definitely recommend all of them. So that's all I have for you today. Do you have any questions, any feedback, any things that you have on your heart and mind in the last minute or so that we have?
Well, thank you, Fatima. I know we're almost at the end of time, but thank you so much for that very thought-provoking discussion. I hope everybody takes the time to write down their personal leadership statement and sending it to Fatima. If somebody wants to unmute or raise your hand, we do have time probably for like one comment or question.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, well,
Thank you, of course, to David for interpreting.
yes, and thank you again, AMCF, for allowing me to come in and share. And thank you to all of the people who took time out of your busy day to come and take a little bit of a taste of what it would look like if we redefined leadership and centered belonging and justice.
Thank you so much, Fatima. This was beyond thought-provoking. I love the examples from the prophet and how that can guide us today, right? Just go back to the source. I think that's so wonderful. So thank you so much for all your guidance and showing us the way today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right,
And
take care,
I love
everybody.
the three different leadership styles
Oh,
and
thank you.
how, yeah, that was really good too. Thought provoking. I love that word.
Okay, thank you. So let's just keep thinking on it so that we can be these liberators and emergers and covenant leaders in our communities. All right. Thank you all so much. Assalamu alaikum.